From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Thank you very much, Ollie. Thank you. Welcome to Thursday's Richie Allen Show. Hope you're well. It's the BBG, not the BBC. My name is Richie Allen. Looking forward to speaking with you today. Do get in touch with the programme on Twitter as usual. It is a live radio show and I look forward to hearing from you. I really do. Shall we do it then? Shall we get on with it? Let's do it.
Well, bring out the gimp.
It's the Richie Allen Show. Broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Yeah, the hilariously funny but also brilliant Gerald Celente joins the programme a bit later on. The legendary publisher of the Trends Journal, accurately forecasting macroeconomic and geopolitical trends, well, since forever. Looking forward to catching up with Gerald to look back at the year that's gone and look ahead to next year. He'll have lots to say, undoubtedly, about a lot of things going on at the moment. Gerald Celente on the programme a bit later on. Before that, though, you and I will have a chat. Going to round up the big news stories of the last couple of days. Some really interesting things going on outside of the general election. By the way, it'll be around about 10 p.m. this evening. For those of you that are on tenterhooks and wondering what's going to happen with the election, around 10 p.m. for the exit poll. And I did mention this morning, I'll mention again, I do believe my pals Hayden Hewitt and Graham Booth will be on air at the time it emerges, the exit poll, at the time they publish it, that is. They'll be on trigger warning on YouTube and they are worth checking out. I'll certainly be doing that a bit later on. Yes, BBG, not the BBC. Lovely evening yesterday. Thank you for not complaining that I took the afternoon off. Nice bit of pub grub and a nice walk around Manchester. Which, it's funny, since moving to Salford, I don't spend as much time in the city of Manchester, that is. And, well, I'm busy anyway, obviously with the job that is doing the radio programmes and the YouTube live streams. But I'm a little bit closer to the city than I was when I was in Fallowfield. I mean, I was very close in Fallowfield, but I'm closer now and I just don't get to go in very often. It was nice to be in and around the big city. It means a lot to me, Manchester. It was a very important place for me to escape when I was in my teens, to come over here and get lost in a big city and watch the old football and have a pint and be anonymous, you know. Yes, good evening, Liz Jones. How you doing, Liz? Hi to Joe Public. Hi to Paul Burchell, who's a big fan of Gerald Celente, as am I. Trends in the News on YouTube is brilliant. He's a great guy, Gerald Celente. Very funny man. Now, we're coming up for 6 minutes then, past the hour. Best get on with it. Tell me if you voted, by the way. Tweet me. I said this morning, you know me, you've known me a long time now. My bark's worse than my bite. I say a lot of stuff. I say a lot of things. I shout sometimes. I don't know any more than you know. I'm not better than you. I'm not brighter than you. So I don't judge you just because I think it's futile. Like I said this morning, I understand why some people think, well, at least in the meantime, things will be better. You know, and it's also something I could have mentioned this morning and I didn't. Also, because of Jeremy Corbyn's lifelong commitment to peace and to protesting wars, you could also make the argument that despite in the grand scheme of things nothing really changing, maybe in the short term, maybe Corbyn would stop arming the Saudis, maybe Corbyn would, I know, look, I hear you. So let me know if you voted. Interesting reports this morning that there were queues everywhere. Now that's good for the challenger usually. Usually if there is a low turnout, it favours the incumbent. If there's a massive turnout, and it looks like there was, at least earlier today anyway, and the polls said it was too close to call overnight. As I said, exit poll at 10. Is there a shock on the cards? I don't know. Okay. The Mail, that's in the Daily Mail, is livid with celebrities. Livid. Here's a headline on Mail Online, dailymail.co.uk this afternoon. Revealed Corbyn's polling day ploy to convince celebs to back his party. A comedian has claimed that Corbyn's social media team asked him to tweet Labour and to help start a wave of other lovies doing the same. And looks like it worked, says the Mail. That's the headline on the Mail. The Mail are pissed off with the lefties in celebdom, in the kingdom of celebrity. Singers Lily Allen, Paloma Faith, and Jade Thirlwall. I'm embarrassing. I've no idea who Jade Thirlwall is. I know Paloma, of course, closer to my era maybe, and Lily Allen, of course, mad as a box of frogs. Game of Thrones actress Maisie Williams, love Game of Thrones. Comedian John Bishop, and even Danny DeVito, the Penguin has been tweeting Labour today. They have urged Britain to make Jeremy Corbyn the next PM. What happened was, this morning Jeremy, or one of his social media people, tweeted the word Labour just after the polls opened on Jeremy's account, and then a lot of these lefty celebrities did the same. Will it make a difference? Will it make a difference? But the comedian Phil Yang refused to do it, and he said no, and he called it out. Right, there you are. Stormzy put a video message out today. Stormzy, or Grimesy, as I mistakenly called him at one time. The music is grime. Stormzy is the king of grime. He tweeted a video message to his 1.3 million followers, saying that it was clear that Jeremy Corbyn should lead the country, calling him a man of hope, and said anyone who votes for Boris Johnson is stupid, and all going very well, but he couldn't resist a bit of bad language. Stormzy threw in the line that Boris Johnson even is a fucking prick. It was all going well in his video. A passionate video from Stormzy, but I'm not going to, throw any stones at poor Stormzy there. The news programmes today, the TV programmes showing them going to showing the leaders going to the polling booths. They showed Boris Johnson taking his dog to the polling booth. I think her name is Carrie. That's lousy. Did you hear that, Tom? Did you hear that? I called the PM's girlfriend a dog. Did you hear that, Tom? Did you hear it? Did you?
No. Could you repeat it? Because I can't believe my fucking
No,
ears.
I'm not going to repeat it. I'm not going to repeat it, is what I'm not going to do. Right. What's happened now? What's happened to my list? Yeah. Strange things are happening technically. Do you know that? Strange things are happening technically. To me. Today. Yeah. Anyway. Let's move on. Yeah, I take it back. I'm not referring to anybody as a dog. This is a cheap joke. Now, this is important. Listen up. Wished. 11 minutes past 5. This is important. Big story today, and it's got... This one has travelled. This one has travelled. A lot of talk about it. The NHS is allegedly over-diagnosing children having medical treatment for gender dysphoria, with psychologists unable to properly assess patients over fears they will be branded transphobic. And that's according to former staff. In fact, 35 psychologists resigned from the Children's Gender Identity Service in London in the last 3 years. And this is the Sky News report. Often critical of Sky we are, but this is very good. 6 of them have now raised concerns about hormone treatment being given to children with gender dysphoria. And as we talked about earlier today on the live stream thing, that's a condition where a person experiences distress because of a mismatch between their biological sex, the sex that they come out of their mother's womb as, and their gender identity. Okay? Now, a psychologist who wished to remain anonymous said, "Our fears are that young people are being over-diagnosed and then over-medicalised." Important, very important. The medical fraternity is standing up to be counted here. Here's the psychologist who left, and the person's words are read by an actress, I believe.
There are young people who I now wouldn't necessarily put on medication or sign off on medication.
This was the only clinician prepared to be interviewed. They asked us to change their voice.
I was once working with an executive that felt the gender dysphoria a young person was presenting with was really strong, really intense. So she decided to put the young person forward for the hormone blocking treatment after 2 appointments. Looking back, it was a young person with a history of trauma and direct trauma in terms of abuse. And also there were other things happening to them, and this was not really explored by the clinician.
These views were echoed by others who had worked at the clinic. Therapy is not an option in this service, one psychologist told us. We fear that we have had front row seats to a medical scandal, said another.
The numbers started growing from 2012 when we started seeing more females coming forward, and this has happened across the Western world.
And as a psychologist, did you ever feel that you could say to a parent, I don't believe your child is trans?
No, and this is one of the reasons why I decided to leave the service, because as a psychologist, I felt that if I ever spoke to a family like this, I would immediately be called transphobic.
Yeah. Very interesting. Now, the response from the Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust comes in the form of a woman called Bernadette Wren. She's a clinical psychologist. What is her response to the charges made by those psychologists who left?
The work that we do to really inform these young people as fully as we can what this means to start taking, say, testosterone, in the example, what that means for them physically, what are the irreversible impacts of that, what are the impacts on fertility, what are the possible, to consider the possible impacts on their sexuality, relationships in the future. Of the young people who've perhaps come to us and thought they'd like to review their decision, they, again, one or two, they have always said that they felt we have done everything that we could to make clear to them the gravity, really, of the choice that they're making.
Yeah, we tell them everything they need to know, and we don't leave them in any doubt as to the seriousness of what they're doing, claims Bernadette Wren from the Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust. Now, this has had a massive impact today, this programme, trending on social media. As much as any human interest story reported in the UK media this year, I would say. Now, Stella O'Malley is an Irish woman, you won't be surprised, with a name like that. She's from Offaly and is a psychotherapist. When she was a young girl, she had gender dysphoria, believed she was a boy, but didn't transition. She is very worried about children who express gender dysphoria. Here's Stella O'Malley, very important.
I'm concerned about them because I wonder, are perhaps children being overdiagnosed? When you say I had gender dysphoria, nobody really was diagnosed with gender dysphoria back then because it was a different name. But I certainly have looked at the DSM, I've looked at all the symptoms, and I identify with them. And I had them for a long, long time when I was a child, from around about the age of 3 to around about the age of 10. And I was consistent and I was persistent and I was insistent. And I was a very strident and powerful child. And I believe I would have been the type of child, had I been born 30 odd years later, that would have been very, very insistent on getting puberty blockers. But for me, it would have been the wrong treatment, because for me, when I went into puberty, even though it was horrible and my distress increased significantly, ultimately puberty over those few years was what released me from gender dysphoria, or what certainly I would term gender dysphoria or describe the symptoms of gender dysphoria. And since then, I've never had any sort of dysphoric feelings around my gender. And I'm perfectly happy to be a woman, be born the biological. I'm lucky that it didn't persist. I know for some people it does.
Yeah. Things might have been very different for her if she was born a bit later on, like in this particular era, this paradigm, this you know, where it's much easier. And she makes the point here that it would have been, and it might not have been good for her.
I think I would have been somebody who would have got on the internet. I would have found out about the concept, for starters, of puberty blockers, of being able to halt puberty, which was so distressing for me. And then I would have found my community. And my community would have been, because I know what is often said online, my community would have been very, very positive towards me going on puberty blockers. And while I'm not saying that for some people that might be very, very, very satisfying, to find a community is a very, very intense experience. However, for me, it would have been the wrong decision. And that's why I'm speaking out about it. I do feel that we need to know that puberty blockers for this designation is quite an experiment. Like they're used for cancer treatment, and they were originally designed for children who would have got into precocious puberty at maybe 3 or 4 years of age. And their puberty had to be stopped so that they could go into natural puberty maybe 6 or 7 years later. These days, for the last 10 years, they've been using puberty blockers specifically for children who wish to one day transition. And they were originally marketed as a pause button. And while I was very unsure about because it's very alluring to say a pause button. Now, we all want to give a pause button for life, but it's turned out this pause button isn't what it said it would be. Because it turns out that around about roughly 97, 98% of children who go on puberty blockers then go on to transition. And while there's nothing wrong with transitioning, and if you choose that as an adult who's completely clear about what the road ahead is, that's perfectly fine. But if you're a child and you're 11 years old, you cannot know what the impact of impaired infertility is. You can't know what the impact of your impaired sexual functioning, painful orgasms, bone density issues. You'll wave them away because you're 11 and you're a child and you have that immature, intense emotional brain.
Very important that. From County Offaly, Stella O'Malley there. Powerful stuff, right? Later in the day, remember, big reaction to this. Sky have been bringing on lots of people to react. Here's teacher. She's a teacher, Debbie Hayton. Listen carefully even to what she says.
Well, I don't think we should be providing this treatment to children at all. I think it's irresponsible and inappropriate. It's an untested and uncontrolled experiment on these young people. Young people are coming out in numbers as they've never come out before. We need to ask why.
Why?
The demographic is very different. Traditionally, transsexualism has been male to female. Suddenly, most of these are girls. None of these questions are answered. Instead, a process seems to happen by which promises are made to these young children and then not delivered. And then we're wondering why we have a mental health crisis amongst them.
We're wondering why we have a mental health crisis amongst them. Debbie Hayton, a teacher. She's a trans woman as well, incidentally, the teacher. So you have all these people, psychotherapists, psychologists, coming out saying this is really, really dangerous. We don't know what's going on. We're not looking into this enough. We're allowing children to pause their puberty, giving no consideration, that's the word, consideration to the effect that this will have on those children when they are in their late teens, early 20s. None. Just giving it to them. And that's that. Right? Right. So you're getting a lot of common sense, and you're getting the medical fraternity standing up to be counted, saying we're not going to be bullied or cowed or marginalised anymore by activists. You know, nobody knows who these people are, but these activists, right? Stonewall is one, this charity, who demand that, well, you know, people say, if children say they're in the wrong body, well, then they're in the wrong body, you should give them whatever drugs they need. Medical people have had enough, they're standing up. Powerful testimonies, common sense. But then, of course, Sky brings in an LGBTQ plus activist, a little moron called Jamie Windust. After hearing all of that, after hearing from Debbie Hayton, trans woman, after hearing from Stella O'Malley, after hearing from the psychotherapist who left the Tavistock Trust, the Tavistock and Portman Trust, what does the LGBTQ plus, whatever you want to call him, activist Jamie Windust say? You probably won't be surprised. This is maddening, this.
I think one of the biggest things that we've found, you know, this video highlights is that there is an abundance of young trans people who are accessing these services, but I think the numbers aren't the issue.
The numbers are not the issue.
The issue is the funding and the access to these services.
Oh my God. So the fact that thousands of children all of a sudden are saying they're in the wrong body and are being offered puberty-blocking drugs is not the problem. The problem, says this muppet, is that, well, they have to wait a bit too long for it.
Because we heard about the...
Wait for it now. She nails him here. Listen to what she says to him. The presenter, I think her name is Sarah Hewson. Listen to this.
Because we heard about the long waiting list.
Absolutely. You know, it's between 18 months and 2 years that these young people have to wait. So I think that's one of the biggest
Well, that's the biggest
that
issue. That's the biggest issue, that they have to wait for 2 years to get access to these drugs.
This piece...
Now she nails him here.
...piece highlights, not necessarily the fact that there are a lot of people accessing them. There are a lot of...
That's not an issue at all, that lots and lots of children want to access these services. No problem. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. The problem is they're not getting seen soon enough, says the dopey, pathetic LGBTQ plus whatever the fuck activist. Muppet.
The problems that force people to have to go private, which is where it can sometimes seem that it gets a bit tricky.
And we...
Listen to what she says.
Saw Luke's story
Yeah.
there, who talked about that telephone consultation, paid £50, never seen personally, and then prescribed testosterone.
Yeah, Luke was seen. You see, this LGBTQ plus activist heard testimony from Luke, who was given a prescription for testosterone despite not being seen by a psychotherapist. Not being seen by it. And Jamie doesn't give a shit. No problem. The problem is they're waiting too long, says Jamie. He's not alarmed that thousands of children are saying all of a sudden we're in the wrong body. More girls than boys in many places. Bizarrely. Trans used to be mostly men to women, going back years, right? Now it's young girls. Jamie doesn't give a shit. His only concern is, well, they're not being seen quick enough.
What kind of fuckery is this?
Give him the puberty blockers, says the LGBTQ guy. Nothing to see here. That's what an LGBTQ plus activist is. A fucking dangerous lunatic. A dangerous lunatic. Huh? What's the agenda? We know what the agenda is. We've had men and women on this programme for years talking about this, where this ultimately leads. It's terrifying. But the doctors, some of the psychologists, psychotherapists, psychiatrists are standing up and saying, no, this is terrible. And it's great to see trans men and women saying, no, this is crap, this. It shouldn't be happening. Do not give puberty blocking drugs to children. Don't do it. It is 25 minutes past the hour. Going to take a tune right now. I think I've got some Prince lined up for you. Indeed I do. Musical break, back with plenty more after this. And your tweets as well. Good to be with you this Thursday.
Made gifts.
Welcome back to the most listened to independent radio show in Europe. It's your Richie Allen Show.
Welcome back. It's approaching 29 and a half minutes past 5. It's October. It isn't October. It's December the 12th. It's election day here in the UK. Did you vote? Let me know, by the way. Liz has been on to me. How you doing, Liz? Richie, I've voted 2 or 3 times since 1978, says Liz. My gut feeling then was that it was a waste of time. Now I know that's true, says Liz. How you doing? Liz, David was on to me. David Kona, how you doing, pal? I voted, he says. I voted Tory. I voted Labour. I voted Lib Dem. I voted Green. All equally as worthless and self-serving as each other. Couldn't decide who was the least inept. So I spoiled the paper, says David. Joe Public did the same thing. Spoiled my ballot early doors this morning, he said. Good for you. Well, good for whatever you did, you know. Who, as I said earlier, who am I to be judging anybody? Joe says, do these blockers, puberty blockers, work when you're in your 60s? Yeah. Some of us have not matured. Maybe that includes me. On the puberty blockers for children with gender dysphoria, Steve says, I once wore my mother's shoes when I was 7. The psychologist never got hold of me, though, he said. So when I was 15, I joined the army. That made a man out of him. Got issued a legal firearm and got the opportunity to travel the world shooting people aggressively, says Steve. Good for you, Steve. Right. Why not? William has been along to vote, has William? I know he's voted SNP. We know. SNP, Scottish National Party. Not allowed to say Jimmy Cranky anymore, so I'm not allowed. Because John ruined everything for me. Scottish John, whom we've heard from on the programme once or twice, he said you shouldn't say Jimmy Cranky, Richie, so I'm not allowed to say Jimmy Cranky. So therefore I just don't say Jimmy Cranky. Yes, I understood every word of that. Now, let's move on. Don't forget Gerald Celente a bit later on. Don't forget tomorrow, I don't know what time, sometime around lunchtime, I will be on the radio. I'll be right here. And I'll be reflecting, I don't know how long for, 40 minutes, maybe 45 minutes should be enough, depending on how it's going, to look at the result, which we should know in the small hours of Friday morning. All right? Okay. Puberty blockers for children. Climate activist Greta Thunberg has changed her Twitter bio. Has she? I didn't look. I'm just believing this. I'm taking this as a given. She's changed her Twitter bio to mock Donald Trump because Donald Trump has been trolling her. Donald said she had an anger management problem, and to help herself, she should go to a good old-fashioned movie with a friend. Chill, Greta, chill, said Donald. So Greta changed her Twitter bio to say that she was a teenager working on her anger management problem, currently chilling and watching a good old-fashioned movie with a friend. She was named as Time Magazine's Person of the Year on Wednesday. We know this, don't we? We talked about it earlier on. Because she's leading a global movement against climate change. I know, it was mad. I know what I was supposed to do. I'm breaking my own rules. I'm disgusted at myself. It took me so long to make my Greta theme, didn't it? It took me ages to make it. It took me 5 minutes. I think it took me 5 minutes. And I've not got it ready to go. But you know what I'm going to do? Such is the child that I am. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to prepare it while I'm chatting with you, because I can multitask like the best woman on planet Earth, like any woman. I'll take the Pepsi challenge with any woman on multitasking, because I can line up music, I can read newspaper stories, talk to you, paint me toenails, make a cup of tea, all while doing a live radio show. What the fuck did I just take that? Right, okay. Let me put it back in. I've just taken a pen drive out of one of the many computers in the studio. Right. Talking off mic now. Be Jesus. And you should never talk off mic. Very unprofessional behaviour by that Richie Allen today, huh? What a pricky. Right. Okay, hang on. No, I spent so much time on it. That I'm actually disgusted. I'll give myself a slap on the back of the head later on for not remembering it. My Greta theme. So here we go. I'm changing pen drives now and one into another, and here we go now. Did I have to do it? I did. Right. Yeah, you talk amongst yourselves there for a minute, and I'll sort out my Greta theme. I'll probably mess it up now. It worked beautifully, didn't it, the first time? I'm overselling this. When you hear it, you'll say, what a pile of shite this is. Right, okay. Oh, fucking kid. Right, okay. Yeah, I think we're in. Are we in? Okay. So there's a Greta story then. Changed her bio. Okay. And for the Greta story, we need to have our Greta theme. And I think we're ready to go. After all of this now, you're saying it better be good, right? Hey!
They sweep their mess under the carpet for our generation to clean up and solve.
How dare you! You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction. How dare you!
Yes! Do you know what?
They sweep their mess under the carpet for our generation to clean up and solve.
How dare you! You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction. How dare you!
Yes! Tell you what, I'm so proud of that. I did that all by myself. I used to watch Play School and Rod, Jane and Freddie and Bosco on Radio Telefishering. I used to watch Bosco as well. So I learned how to make things for myself with a bit of paper mache and stuff. Right, so that's Greta then. Hi to Gail, who says, nope, not voting for my continued enslavement. She says, thank you, Gail. JT the game says, I agree with you, voting is a waste of time. I didn't bother, makes no difference who gets in, they don't work for the people. Scottish John says, Richie, if it makes you happy, you can say Jimmy Cranky all you want. Thank you, John. I won't now that you've given me permission, of course. Bit of reverse psychology there, John, huh? Right. Anyway, so Trump trolled Greta. Greta changed her Twitter bio and all of that. The man, that's Trump, the man with the dildo implanted in his rectum, painted in the Israeli flag's colours, Star of David. Julia Hartley Brewer on Talk Radio today had a debate about Greta and Time magazine with Spiked online editor Brendan O'Neill and the science broadcaster Emily Grossman. So, is the editor of Spiked Online, Brendan O'Neill, is he happy? Is he happy for Greta that she was given the Person of the Year?
No, not at all. I think it's a really bad mistake. I think Greta Thunberg is, in my view, she's a prophetess of doom. She is going around the world spreading this incredibly depressing, misanthropic, inaccurate message. There's nothing in the science to back up the idea that billions of people will die and the planet is coming to an end. And she's making, not her, but the way in which she's been exploited by the Green Movement, including by Extinction Rebellion, they are making children feel ill. There's a rise in eco-anxiety, there's a rise in eco-related mental ill health, and that's all down to adults using young people like Greta to foist a really depressing message on the world.
Yes. Again, I don't like agreeing with Brendan O'Neill, but he's right, isn't he? Emily Grossman, the science broadcaster, wasn't very happy with his characterisation of young Greta.
And in response to those comments about her, I mean, everything she is doing is based on absolute hard evidence, absolute hard science. There are many top climate scientists who are indeed saying that if we do not act radically and we don't act now, that we will be in a situation, certainly within years, if not decades, where we risk the absolute threat to our civilization, we risk the threat to billions of lives. That is indeed true. It's based on hard science. And yes, there is anxiety amongst children. The anxiety amongst children, I work with children. That's part of my work. I'm a science communicator. I go into schools and I work with children. And they are anxious. And they're anxious because the adults, the grown-ups, the government, even their parents are not doing enough to address this crisis, which they are learning about.
Children are terrified. They're terrified. Anxiety is up amongst children, teens, pre-teens. Do you believe this nonsense? And there's no evidence to support any of it, as we know. Final word to O'Neill. O'Neill says, rather than save the world, we need, in fact, to be thinking about saving Greta.
No, I just think, environmentalism increasingly sounds like a kind of religious cult, a religious death cult, in fact, with its kind of prophecy about the end of days, about the need to correct our sinful behaviour. And now, in Greta, they have this kind of messiah figure, this innocent child, who's come to save us all from ourselves. It's a really weird medieval-style movement, and Extinction Rebellion, I'm afraid, sums that up. I think we should now actually think less about saving the planet and more about saving Greta. I think we need a Save Greta campaign, because she, like many children, has been swept up in a movement that is quite misanthropic, quite fearful, and really downbeat about humanity's potential. We need to save Greta and save children from a green movement that has become a bit unhinged.
Yeah, absolutely right, we do. We need to save Greta. Yeah. Hey, let's remember David Bellamy, by the way, the environmentalist, the botanist, TV personality, who died yesterday. David didn't buy the climate hoax at all. There's a fascinating clip I dug out for you of David Bellamy on New Zealand television back in 2009. So about, 10 or so years ago. Have a listen. He's being interviewed by a young man and a young woman. And they're a bit bemused by him and by his disbelief in the climate change story. David Bellamy, New Zealand television 10 years ago.
Of course, if you go back 2,000 years ago in Britain, we were growing good Merlot in the borders of Scotland.
We were growing Merlot grapes, borders of Scotland, 2,000 years ago, because it was very warm.
And that was 3 degrees to 5 degrees warmer than it is now.
Than it is now. The average temperature 5 degrees warmer than it is now.
And then we had the little ice age and everyone, and we fought each other. It is climate change, and there is absolutely nothing. We're talking about 0.7 degrees Celsius rise. I go out this thing, a cloud comes over, and it changes that much. It is a total poppycock.
What if you're wrong?
Well, if I'm wrong, I expect they'll put me in prison.
No, I shouldn't imagine that you will. No, but have you experienced, I suppose, vitriol and hatred for expressing your beliefs?
This is back in 2009 now, so this is kind of pre-Twitter, right? And he's been asked, because you don't buy the nonsense, are you getting any shit for it there, David?
I'm a Holocaust denier, and
they equated him to a Holocaust denier back then.
Should be sent off and tried for crimes against humanity. And I would say that exactly the other side, the people who won't allow both sides to... Why won't Al Gore stand up and have a head-to-head with some of the people.
Why won't Gore have a head-to-head with people like me and scientists who don't believe it, says David Bellamy. Well, we know why.
He won't, and he's a multi-billionaire, and he's boasting about, I'm a multi-billionaire, and I'm carbon neutral. How can anyone be carbon neutral? He flies around things, he flouts the truth right in there. And if you look at his...
This is a very good bit of information he's going to give you now, David Bellamy. A lot of people won't know this, but it's about the film An Inconvenient Truth. And when it first came out.
His famous DVD, there are 25 very, very dodgy statements.
25 serious inaccuracies contained within the film. And what happened when it came out?
Politically. And that is banned in Britain. No school can be shown it unless the other side is actually given in the argument.
A lot of people won't remember that, but schools refused to show An Inconvenient Truth because it was riddled with nonsense. So they wouldn't show it. The Department of Education said, no, it's obviously bullshit, right?
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Of course they didn't. They're ignorami.
I say I didn't know. But thank you.
Wait for how they end the interview. Listen to this.
Very much for your time, Professor David Bellamy, visitor to our country and...
Climate change denier. Lovely to see you on Sunrise this morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
What kind of fuckery are you?
Climate change denier, they said. They giggled at him, looked at the camera and got rid of him. Yeah. Do you know why? Because there was a producer in the gallery screaming at them, get him off! Get him off! He's telling people that An Inconvenient Truth is a monumental load of old bollocks. Get him off! Get him off! I've been that soldier, you see. You know, I've worked at every level of commercial radio. I've been on air, I've been the producer, and I've seen it happen. I've never done it to a presenter, but I've seen it happen. Get him off! Get him off! He's telling the truth! Get him off! Yeah. Here you are. She called him a climate change denier and laughed in his face. You did catch that, didn't you, at the end there? You caught that bit at the end, didn't you? Of them laughing at him and calling him a climate change denier? Eh? You did catch that last bit, didn't you? Well, I can play it for you again, because this is the media, and this is only 2009 now. 2009.
Know that?
No, I didn't. I must say I didn't know. But thank you very much for your time, Professor David Bellamy, visitor to our country and...
Climate change denier. Lovely to see you on Sunrise this morning. Thanks very much for joining.
Yeah, laugh at him, which is a way of editorialising. It's a way of signalling to the audience that this guy's a bit of a crank. He's a bit of an eccentric old guy. No, he just dropped a whole shitload of truth bombs in your lap there, love, and you didn't like it very much. Paul McCartney was on BBC Radio 2 earlier, and Paul was honestly asked, he honestly was asked today, Paul, would you ever think of giving up touring to help save the planet? Honestly.
It's a reality. You just have to do it, and I think you just have to plant a lot of trees. That's kind of how I offset it, is doing things that will make up for it. If I am going to tour, then that is going to involve travel, which is going to involve a carbon footprint. I'm
going to keep touring, and I'll just plant a few trees along the way, says Paul McCartney. Good for Paul. What are we? We take another tune, will we? Yeah, go on. It's a more laid-back approach today. Gerald Celente joins me in the next hour. But we'll have a tune, we'll have a chill out, and when we come back, I'll read more of your comments. Alrighty. Joan Jett and the Black Hearts on the Richie Allen Show. Don't forget later on this evening, around about 10 o'clock, the exit poll will be in. And Hayden Hewitt and Graham Booth, their trigger warning guys. They'll be live on their YouTube channel. Check them out. You can have them on and keep the old BBC or Sky on in the background on silent and listen to the lads. They'll make you laugh and you can join in with them. They're great like that. You can send them messages through chat, live chat on YouTube, and they'll be happy to have your company a bit later on. Unless there's been a change, but Tuesday and Thursday are the trigger warning nights, so I'm pretty sure the lads, I know they're on. And if Graham or Hayden is listening to this, they might not be. They might be pretty busy. They can drop us a tweet, but I'm pretty sure they're on. Right, it's pretty much 10 minutes to the top of the hour. In about 15 minutes or thereabouts, Gerald Celente will drop in from New York City. Can't wait to hear him. It's been a while since Gerald was on. Looking forward to getting his take on what's in the news at the moment. Sean says David Bellamy is a legend. His word poppycock ultimately cost him his TV career. It certainly did. It certainly did, mate. David Stanford says, Richie, repeat, and ye shalleth be saved. Praise the Lord of climate change, for is the one true God. Praise God and casteth out all ye non-faithful. Get the steaks and the matches, says David. We're not there yet, mate, but I suppose we're not far off, are we? If you've got these goons turning up in city centres, affecting people's livelihoods by gluing themselves to the streets and stopping traffic and closing down whole areas, we're not far off it, I suppose. We're not far off it, I suppose. Right, let's quickly move on and talk briefly about Harvey Weinstein. He has reached a $25 million settlement with dozens of women who accused him of sexual misconduct. Now, the agreement has been described as tentative. It's supposed to be rubber stamped at some stage today, but tentative, but 25 million between dozens of women who have accused him of sexual misconduct. We're talking about 30 actresses and ex-employees. They would share the payout. But it needs to be signed off by all parties. Weinstein's lawyers haven't commented, and some say the deal will actually punish those who are holding out. Now, he's also got a criminal trial coming up in January on rape and sexual assault charges. He denies it, of course. If he is convicted in January, he could even go to prison for the rest of his life. Let's hear from Sky News' Amanda Walker. She gives us the lowdown on the tentative settlement. That's the tentative settlement, but also on the pending charges as well. Sky News' Amanda Walker.
Well, it's being described as a tentative settlement at the moment, but from what we can gather, this has been brewing for months and seems to have certainly preliminary approval from most of the plaintiffs, most of the women involved, around 30 women in respect of this settlement. Now, the amount, as you say, $25 million, so around £19 million. And from what we understand, that would be shared among those women. And Harvey Weinstein himself would not admit any wrongdoing. These are the images from court yesterday. Pretty shocking condition that he seems to be in, using a walking frame there. Apparently this relates to a car accident he had. His lawyers say that he will be having back surgery soon, but certainly a very different figure to the one who was such a big player in Hollywood for so many years. Also, part of this settlement, we understand, means that he wouldn't actually pay the money himself, that it would come from insurance companies relating to his movie company, the Weinstein Company. So overall, a lot of women involved here in terms of very different responses to this. There are some who are saying it's the right thing to do and it can provide some conclusion to what these accusers have gone through. But also on the other side, you have some of those women saying that this is a joke, that this is very disappointing and not the outcome they had hoped for. And certainly others suggesting that it's a wider reflection of a system that has failed and is not working in favour of these women. Now, separately, Harvey Weinstein is facing a criminal trial that's due to begin on January the 6th, and that relates to an accusation of rape from 2013 and also an accusation that he performed a forcible sex act on a woman in 2006. So that is a separate case, but it seems like, from what we can gather from the response so far, that this settlement is pretty close to being a sealed deal for Harvey Weinstein.
And he wouldn't apologise or have anything to say, and the insurance company for his film company would pay out. Harvey Weinstein in the news today. You're with the Richie Allen radio show for Thursday, December 12th, Red Letter Day in the history of UK politics. The third general election in 5 years. And apparently, I keep hearing this all day long, so it must be true. It's nearly 100 years since we had an election in December. Do you know what I'd love to know right now? Because curiosity, of course, regardless of my feelings that the result won't matter in the grand scheme of things, but I am curious as to the turnout. Because, as I mentioned at the very top of the programme, you might have heard me say at the top of the programme, when I did the live stream thingy this morning and I finished it, I went running, so I did. And as I was running, I had my headphones and my phone with me so I could listen to radio. I ordinarily don't do that because it's actually a dangerous thing to do, to be running on the streets or on the footpaths on the streets, and you know what I'm talking about. And you've got to have your ears when you're running. So when I do run with headphones, I'm looking around everywhere all the time. But I was listening to radio, and they're not allowed comment on the election, so I could get nothing. From the radio, and I thought, right, okay. So then I got back to the house and I went online to the newspapers, and the newspapers can say whatever they want. And a number of newspapers this morning reported that in constituencies around the country, there were huge queues, long queues going back hundreds of feet, people waiting to get in and vote. And that was very different from the 2015 and the 27 elections. It might not mean anything. It could be down to the weather, could be down to people going to work, maybe getting a bit of time off work. Who knows? But if it is the case that this time we will see a big upsurge in participation in voting, that would favour the challenger. Now, that's a historical fact. That's the way it goes, right? If the turnout is very low, it's great news for the government of the day, the incumbent. Great news, But if you get a lot of people coming out, more than normal, there might be something about to go down. What do you think? What's your own gut feeling there? It's an interesting one, this. I'm kind of counting the hours now till 10 o'clock. It's an old habit for me. I've been covering elections, for years and years and years. So old habits do die hard. He was miles behind in the opinion polls, Corbyn, going back 10 days ago to 2 weeks. Miles behind. Dreadful the polls were for him. But in the last 4 to 5 days, the lead reduced dramatically. Drastic cut in the lead enjoyed by Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party. So much so that this morning, and if you watched the live stream this morning, you'll have seen the papers on the screen. The Telegraph said their own poll overnight, their own commissioned poll, said it's too close to call. So what's going to happen? We're going to have to wait and see. 2.5 minutes it is to the top of the hour. A number of you were saying to me this afternoon on Twitter, what about the impeachment thing, Richie? Well, look, again, it's one of those stories that I find not to be relevant. And I've outlined the reasons I don't believe it to be relevant in the past. But the latest on it is, if you want the latest on it, is that sometime later on, because they are 5 hours behind us in DC, a US House of Representatives panel will probably approve impeachment charges against Donald Trump. There's a debate going on at the moment, and apparently it's very rancorous. It's very heated, allegedly. But despite the rancorous nature of it and the heated exchanges, it's likely that the House of Representatives panel will will approve impeachment charges. But they're not going to go very far, is the smart money. So I do keep an eye on that sort of thing. I do keep an eye on those stories. But in the grand scheme of things, it's all theatre. It's all theatre because it rallies Trump's supporters. They entrench themselves. They dig down even further into their, collective consciousness and bury themselves in the idea that Donald is amazing. He's this big, great guy who's taken on the deep state. He's the top man. He's brilliant. He's one of us. And of course, on the other side, you have the others, the supporters of people like Ocasio-Cortez and the what's her name? What's her name in Hawaii? I should remember her name. The former military woman. What's her name? Bejesus. It doesn't matter. Does it? Pocahontas is Elizabeth Warren, isn't it? Who's your woman in Hollywood? Anyway, right, you know what I'm talking about. So those people's supporters, they dig deep down as well. Identity politics. And the establishment loves it. It doesn't matter a damn. the impeachment against Donald Trump. It matters not a jot. Keep telling me, by the way, on Twitter, keep letting me know. Drop in and tell me whether you did or whether you didn't vote. Tulsi Gabbard says, that's right, Charlotte. Tulsi Gabbard. It's a fucking ridiculous name. It's a ridiculous name. That's why I couldn't remember it. Tulsi Gabbard. It's as bad as Tiggy Leg Bourke, the nanny who used to look after Harry Hewitt and his half-brother, William Tiggy Leg Bourke. Do you remember that fucking name? Who has a name like that? Tiggy Leg Bourke. She was highly shaggable though, wasn't she, Tiggy Leg Bourke, back in the day? Yeah. Somebody was probably shagging her. You misogynistic bastard, Richie. Jimi Hendrix is in the clear over the parakeets. Talked about this earlier on today. This made me laugh because South Manchester is under siege from fucking parakeets. Can't go anywhere. It's like Hitchcock. You can't go anywhere. Big debate over where they came from. But it's not the African Queen, 1951. It's not Jimi Hendrix. Hendrix arrived in Carnaby Street, didn't he, in the 60s, and he had a couple of parakeets with him, and he left them go. But he didn't start the parakeet invasion. It also wasn't the African Queen. So what the fuck was it then? I don't know still. I can't be. I'm not going to read the story. Right. Keep the tweets coming in. I think we'll take headlines, then we'll take a tune, and then we'll just about be ready for the man himself, Gerald Celente. Like I said, I do want to know if you went out to vote today. I would like to know. Please do tell me. Please tell me, please. And who you voted for or not. You don't have to tell me that if you don't want. I don't mind. But I would like to hear from you. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. As usual, it's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. Right, we'll head over to London for the headlines. When we come back, I think I've got some Billy Joel lined up for Gerald. We'll have some Billy Joel, and then we'll have Gerald Celente. Trendsresearch.com is the website. Trendsresearch.com. Check it out. Right, headlines from London.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. Police in New Zealand say they'll carry out a high-speed recovery of bodies from the White Island eruption on Friday. Russia has expelled 2 German diplomats in what it's describing as a standard retaliatory move after 2 Russian officials were sent back from Germany last week. Violent protests have broken out in eastern India after the Indian Parliament passed a controversial citizenship bill, and the UK is voting in a general election.
It certainly is voting in a general election, and the polls are open for the booths even are open for 4 more hours. So if you have a polling card and you feel all of a sudden like your constituency might be a marginal one, it's up to you. If you want to head on down to your polling station, you don't need the polling card, by the way. You don't need it. All you need is ID. You don't need the polling card. William Henderson has tweeted a picture of Diane Abbott wearing odd shoes. Yeah, I think Diane Abbott's a very eccentric woman. I don't buy into all this bollocks that Diane Abbott is stupid. She's not stupid, far from it. And the fact she's wearing odd shoes, I kind of like that. I like a bit of eccentricity in my women. Diane Abbott. Fran Griffin says, Richie, no voting here. What's the point, says Fran. They don't listen. And it seriously pisses me off that tonight the new MPs will be celebrating their place on the gravy train and then forget the electorate. Yeah. Steve says, leave Tulsi alone, you baldy gammon. She's trained in self-defence, you know. I take the Pepsi challenge in hand-to-hand combat with Tulsi Gabbard all day long and twice on Sunday. Yeah. I made a balls of that, didn't I? Tulsi Gabbard, Tiggy Leg Bourke, stupid fucking names. I stand by what I said. Okay then, back in a minute. This is your Richie Allen Show. It is live. Gerald Celente with me in a couple of minutes' time.
The Richie Allen Show relies on your support. Go to richieallen.co.uk and set up a monthly donation today.
Yes, do that if you can. richieallen.co.uk. Here is the one and only Billy Joel with a brilliant rendition of his own New York State of Mind. Gerald Celente will be with me. Check out trendsresearch.com. Looking forward to it. Back with him in a few minutes. Billy Joel and the New York State of Mind. One of the best things I ever saw was Billy Joel in concert at Old Trafford. Back in, well, it had to be 2017, didn't it? It was, I think it was the summer of 2017. Yes, what a day that was. Billy Joel. at Old Trafford. Enjoyed it. Lovely day. Steve says, Gerald will be with us in a couple of minutes, by the way. Steve says, Richie, I voted in a marginal constituency. I normally vote tactically, but in consideration, the Lib Dems have Joe Swinson as leader, and Alistair Campbell sent me a letter saying vote Lib Dems. I voted on principle this time, says Steve. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for the heads up there. Appreciate that, letting me know. I also saw a tweet from Skipper Martin. How you doing, Skipper? He says, Richie, if Brexiteers don't go out and vote, we'll be fooked. Every vote counts regardless of whether they listen or not. But the problem is, Skipper, you see, what Boris Johnson is going to agree with the European Union is not Brexit or anything remotely like it. And I hate to say this, but nobody summed it up better than the BBC's Europe editor, a woman called Katja Adler. In a brilliant series of tweets a couple of days ago, she outlined how everything Johnson has said about his deal is basically stuff and nonsense. It is a pack of lies. It isn't Brexit or anything like it. The European Union have been laughing at the man, even this week. And the Conservative Party was very worried that it might swing votes Jeremy Corbyn's way. Because this week the European Union was saying, well, we haven't even begun, obviously, talking about a trade agreement. And for a trade agreement, we're going to want access to the UK's fishing waters. We're going to want very close alignment on terms and conditions and rules and regulations. This is the European Union now. This is, you know, Brussels people. And of course, freedom of movement. Johnson is a lawyer, pathological lawyer. And he didn't secure a deal. He's not secured Brexit. And if he is to get a majority, a working majority tonight, which is not beyond the bounds of possibility, because he might do, he's not going to get the UK out of the European Union. Never, not in a million years. And that's the sad, that's the reality you're going to have to wake up to, Skipper. Not just you, but everybody else. Brexit was never going to be allowed to happen. Can't be allowed. Too much riding on it. Very important pillar of the future global governance system. Hugely important. And no country can be allowed properly leave it. And that's the way it is. And it's going to get worse, the European Union, in the coming months and years as you get even closer political alignment. You know? It was supposed to be, I mean, the lies that were told back in the day about the European Union. It was supposed to be a trading group, a trading bloc, effectively. That's what it was going to be. And it's going to be hunky-dory, that's all. No fiscal alignment. They said this back in the day. Of course, we eventually had the euro. No political alignment. No countries will still be free and sovereign. But the European Economic Area, the EEC, you know, that's what it'll be. Just we'll trade. You know, we won't have so many barriers. It'll be lovely. It was a lie. It was never about trading with one another easily. It was never about that. It was about taking power out of sovereign states' hands and giving it to a tiny, tiny, tiny group of people. That's a very simplistic summing up of what the European Union is. But it's an accurate one. And we won't leave it. Boris Johnson will not take the UK out of the European Union. And any deal that he eventually does do with the European Union will be so horrendous that it would have been better not to leave in the first place. And I'm telling you, you can take that to the bank. You know, let's get Gerald on, shall we? What a legend he is, the brilliant Gerald Celente. We're coming up for 6:15 on Thursday, December 12th. Hi to John Morris Malcolm. How you doing, John? Thanks very much for that. I just retweeted it there, Mr. Gammon. It's the BBG, not the BBC. The big baldy gammon. Mr. S, how you doing, Mr. S? I voted for Labour, Richie, for the NHS. The polling station staff did say it had been busy. Thanks very much, my friend. And that's a good, I suppose, yardstick, because you do find it's the same staff working polling stations for years and years and years. And if they're telling you today that it's been busy, and by all accounts they are saying that it's been busy, you better believe it. You better believe it that something might be happening. I don't want to get you excited because you might get excited, and I don't want to get you too excited. But traditionally, when there is a very high turnout, it favours the contender. It favours the challenger. Mark Best tweets, Richie, I'm in a safe Tory seat. Neither party offers me the Brexit I voted for. So I voted for an independent whose views chime with mine as a protest more than anything else. Let's welcome back a great friend of ours, and I'm delighted that he gives us his time, because he's a busy man. I love the man. I love the Trends Journal. I've been reading it for years. It's weekly now, of course, the Trends Journal. Do go to trendsresearch.com, and I recommend you subscribe to it, because I know I say the same thing every time, but this man has been spookily accurately predicting macroeconomic and geopolitical trends forever and a day. He's one of the nicest guys in the media as well. Let's welcome back to the show the one and only Mr. Gerald Celente. Gerald, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for the kind words.
You deserve them. Are you all geared up for Christmas? Is it a madhouse over there at the Trends Journal?
It's a madhouse in the country.
It's a madhouse in the country. It certainly is. The Journal is brilliant. Lot going on in this week's Journal, of course. We might talk about France. Hey, let's talk about France. Thanks sincerely for coming back. I really appreciate it. Let's kick off with a bit of what's going on in France. My other half, as I've mentioned to you once or twice before, she's French, and her mother would be impacted by Macron's attack on the various pension schemes and plans that people paid into for many, many years. She'd be screwed royally if Macron gets his way. The people are out in massive numbers there in France. Do you know what, Gerald? I kind of envy them, and I wish we were a bit more like them here in the UK. What do you think?
Well, it's not only France. It's Lebanon.
Yeah.
It's Chile. It's Bolivia. It's Hong Kong. It's Zimbabwe. It's South Africa. It's Peru. It's Ecuador. It's Sudan. It's going on around the world. The people are. The 1% has everything. It's just about income inequality. What makes what's going on in France different than the rest, by the way, in one part, is that the other movements are mostly by young people. In France, it's everybody, and it's a whole different culture. It's the beginning of what we're calling one of our top trends for 2020. It's the age of a breakdown that we've never seen before. I've been at this now since 1980. It's almost, in a couple of weeks, it'll be my 4th year. So what we're looking at with all of this is the new world disorder. The people are fed up with the leaders of their governments. All these other places that I mentioned to you, Lebanon, Hong Kong, one after another, who's leading the charge? No one. No one. They're independent movements. The people have had it. And you know what I say, when people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it. What do the people have to lose? What do they have to lose in Chile? What do they have to lose in Bolivia and Ecuador and Colombia, Peru? What do they have to lose? They're broke already. They're getting screwed more and more. Lebanon, same thing, one place after another. It's the inequality. Oh, who's this little Rothschild boy? Macron, the Coxon, right? Yeah. A little arrogant little boy with a pair of cojones probably smaller than mothballs. Yeah. And you think he'd be a tough guy if he didn't have his boys around him, the mob? And that's all the police have become in all these countries. They become protectors for the mobs. And it's very disgraceful because they're just one of us. They're just one of us. Oh, but they got their pensions, their benefits. Yeah, I know. They're one of us. But yet, they bow down to the big guys. They salute, yeah, and they protect them, and they beat us up to protect them. That's what I find so disgusting.
So one of the top trends for 2020 is these movements growing globally. Gerald Celente is our guest. This is fascinating. You talk there about the police. That's very interesting too. They are working class boys and girls like us. They've got a lot to lose themselves. When we see more of this in 2020, do you expect the establishment response to it to be pretty hard?
Oh, yeah. It's going to be income inequality is the big one. And so, too, is freedom and justice. That's not just us. We're the only ones that get nailed for anything wrong that we do. And the big ones get a free ride, just like the banksters got with the too big to jails. So what we're looking at when we're talking about France and what's going on around the world, off with their heads 2.0. Because the people have had it. They're going, the multi-billionaires, all of these very rich people, they're going to have more and more bodyguards. They're going to be doing everything they can to protect themselves. It's going to be a very, very, very dangerous situation out there unless they respond differently, the people in charge, which they are not going to do.
We get the exit poll here in 3.5 hours, which will give us a fair indication as to who's going to lead this country for the next 5 years. And as you'll know, Gerald, the opinion polls for weeks suggested that it was a no contest, that Boris Johnson, another one of these boys like Macron, that he was going to run away with it. But they've come, the lead has narrowed significantly in the last few days. Apparently it's too close to call this morning. And I think a lot of younger people who haven't been questioned, haven't been phoned by the opinion pollsters, have gone out. It looks like a very high turnout here. And Corbyn, even though he's not great, the Labour Party leader, he's not a charismatic man, at least he has been historically anti-war, a pro-peace guy. And, historically he would have voted along the lines of the people, in terms of income inequality and all that. So I just wonder. But like I said, it's too close to call. Are you watching this one here? Are you going to be looking at this tonight to see how it goes?
Oh, absolutely. I've been following it, very closely, as close as we can. But look what you have a choice of. It's the same ruling parties. All you do is get a new member of the gang.
It never changes, does it? It's the same thing. It's one of the reasons I haven't voted in a general election since 2002. But where I am based at the moment, it wouldn't matter anyway. It's one of the safest seats in the country. Trendsresearch.com, Gerald Celente. Check it out if you haven't. Subscribe to the Journal. Listen to Trends in the News. Check it out on YouTube. It's brilliant stuff. Very, very funny, but also very informative. I think we might have just briefly lost Gerald, did we? Are you there?
No, I'm here.
I thought the call dropped out. Thank God for that, it didn't. I've got the Journal open here in front of me. You're fascinated by, and again, this is a trend that you forecast years ago. I can't believe, by the way, it's 40 years for you next year. My God. It's amazing, huh? Incredible. So surveillance is a big thing. And you've been writing about China in the Journal this particular week. And that's fascinating to us because we're seeing tiny signs, Gerald, tiny signs of a kind of a social crediting model coming in here in the UK as well. This is going to be a big thing going forward as well, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, with the UK, you have more, cameras than just about any other country per capita, even big more than China. And it's only going to get worse. The Big Brother, by the way, I find that sexually offensive in this Me Too world. It shouldn't be Big Brother. We should have Big Sister in there too, you did have May, right? And we did have Clinton, and we had Condoleezza Rice, Samantha Power. Yeah. Anyway, Big Brother is going to be watching over us in ways that we can never, ever imagine. And with the younger generation so addicted to their high-tech heroin, they're going to be able to be susceptible to everything that they even think. And that's where the Chinese are going with this. With the artificial intelligence, the algorithms, freedom is a lost word. It will be gone in the future dictionaries because they are going to be watching, knowing, listening, and feeling everything that we do.
Is that a source of frustration to you, the embracing of the tech? There was a big story here yesterday, a number of toys that are on the market for Christmas smart toys aimed at very young children, like little karaoke microphones and stuff that can connect up to everything with Bluetooth and with Wi-Fi. Apparently, they've all got back channels into them that they can be easily monitored. And yet, I see these news stories, but I don't see people being alarmed, Gerald. They don't seem to be alarmed by it.
They're not alarmed because they're addicted to it. I don't carry a cell phone. I have an old flip phone that I keep in the glove compartment of my car. Half the time I forget to charge it because I did work for the cellular telecommunications industry going back to the early 90s. And I knew about the radio frequency radiation and how deadly these are. It comes out from time to time how they're cancer causing in so many different ways. And now with the 5G technology, and of course that's one of our top trends, it's about the high-tech heroin, you're going to have now these cell towers on telephone poles, light poles, rooftops. You're going to be getting radiated from everywhere. And some countries are trying to stop it. Well, they've done it in Brussels, and they're even trying to stop it in Poland. But most places they're not going to. Richie, it's no different than my parents' generation when everyone was addicted to cigarettes.
Yeah.
And they used to have the ad, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette.
Yeah, that's right,
So the people know these are dangerous. They're addicted. How do you break the habit? How do you break an addiction? It's almost impossible in this high-tech heroin world. The other thing is people are going to be more and more dumbed down, not think for themselves, because, hey, they could ask Siri. They don't have to think about anything. Read a map. What's a map? Write? Why do I have to write? It's going to be a dumbing down of society as everything goes more and more high-tech. The brain goes low-tech.
Goes low-tech. And we had a survey here in the national press that showed that many youngsters can't read the face of an old-fashioned clock. I mean, my watch at the moment, which my better half gave to me some years ago, is an old-fashioned watch with two hands and the little hand counting the seconds. Apparently kids can't read them, and they can't read maps either. Even very basic rudimentary maps, they can't read them. I'm proud of the fact, I'm not the brightest guy that ever lived, I'm not, but I can still take a map and have a look at it as I'm parked by the side of the road, and I can say, right, I need to take the next junction or the one after that, then go on the roundabout. I can do that. They can't do it, Gerald. They're going to be helpless. They're going to be helpless.
That's what I'm saying, Richie, that they're not going to be able to think for themselves.
Helpless.
They're not going to be able to write. And now they're going, and when everybody talks about, the information age, the internet, no, you're reading sound bites.
Yeah.
You're not reading detailed stories. You have to understand the depth of the facts. You're not getting that with sound bites. So the people are getting dumbed down. And again, we call it high-tech heroin. It's one of our top trends for 2020, along with what we were talking about before, the New World Disorder, and Off With Their Heads 2.0, and as I mentioned, all these movements going on around the world, independence, follow no leader. The people are on their own on these things.
On their own. But ironically, because I agree with everything you said about the tech and how debilitating it is for people's minds, the other side of that is when people start, and it's brilliant you're talking about this in the journal, trendsresearch.com, folks, subscribe to the journal. It really is brilliant. I'm lucky enough to get a copy sent to me, and it's terrific. Now, the tech will be useful in that sense that it'll be able to help people mobilise quickly, won't it?
Yes and no, because what do? They
survey you.
Yeah, and then when it gets out of hand, they cut it down. You're out. The government takes control. We're shutting down the internet. They just passed that law in Spain, not too far from you. In case of an emergency, the government has the right to shut down the internet.
That's right.
Yeah, you're going to make up your own crap and tell me that's the reason why you're shutting it down.
You were, by the way, one of the first, if not the first people ever to talk to me about cashless society. The first time I spoke with you, I was doing a radio show in Spain for a commercial station called Talk Radio Europe. And you very kindly came on, even though you'd never heard of the bloody radio station, but you came on anyway. And I've always loved you for that. And you mentioned to me this notion that in the next 10 to 15 years, watch cash. That was you. And I remember thinking only a few weeks ago, there was a story about cash machines disappearing right across the UK. And I thought, Gerald Celente, it was you back in the mid to late 2000s. How serious is that, Gerald, if we can't have
it's
cash?
Very serious. It's going to be, actually, what you're going to start seeing, we're forecasting in the years to come, the government debts are building up to levels they can't handle it. You take what's going on in Japan, for example. They just announced a few days ago that they're coming out with a fiscal stimulus plan. They're running out of juice with this monetary methadone that they're pumping into the markets that generated the growth since the panic of 2008. You have negative and zero interest rate policy, quantitative easing. It's worn itself out. So now they're saying, okay, governments, go deeper in debt and come out with stuff, build bridges to nowhere, hire more government employees, do projects that are very costly, but because you're the government, you're going to do them very stupidly and inefficiently. But we got to keep the economy growing, so we're going to use fiscal stimulus, which means you go deeper in debt. Now, Japan just announced a huge fiscal stimulus program. Their debt to GDP ratio, a solid debt to GDP ratio for a country is around 70-80. Japan's is 238.
Oh, Jesus.
And now they're borrowing more money. And by the way, the only reason the equity markets are going up in Japan is because the central banks are buying the stocks and the bonds. The whole game is rigged. So when people say, oh, you know, capitalism versus, capitalism is long gone. There's no such thing in capitalism as central banks buying up stocks are too big to fail. So moving forward on this, the debt levels, and what we're talking about cryptocurrencies, China has a debt to GDP ratio of over 300. What they're going to do is they're going to come out with new cryptocurrencies for each country, do away with their old currencies, come up with a cashless society so that they can track everything that you have. Then they'll start all over again, forget about the debt that they had, create a whole new system, and the younger people who are, this is their whole lives already. They pay with apps. They're not using cash.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had a friend that was telling me there was a breakdown at a major department store where he was shopping, and everybody else had credit cards. He was the only person out of about 35 people, he said, with cash enough to pay for what he had.
Yeah, I've seen this because Manchester is a big university town, as you know, huge university city. Got 3 massive universities here, and I see it all the time in stores, shops, at concerts. When you go to the bar, no cash. It's tap the card, and increasingly they're not even tapping the card, like you just said. They're using an app, so they're touching their phone to the bloody thing. They're touching their phone to it, and I can't believe it. And it doesn't seem to dawn on them that they are, you know, they're in serious trouble if cash is gone, because it means that at any time, you know, we saw this again. I love giving credit where it's due. I've got to give you a bit of credit. You predicted the Cyprus bail-ins. So that was you. It was you. I've got a memory like an elephant. It was you. The bail-ins. And okay, that might be, how many years ago is that, Gerald? 8-9 years ago, maybe a bit less. That's the future, isn't it? In a cashless society, that is the future. The government says, oh dear, we owe lots of money to the banks and it's your fault, stupid citizens, so we're going to take some money out of your account every month, isn't it? That's where we're going.
You got it. That's what they're going to do. They're going, again, with a new currency, they just create a whole new game. And that, you know, when people say to me, for example, you know, you said things were going to really collapse badly in 2012 and it didn't. I said, yeah, I got it wrong. Because tracking trends is an understanding of where we are, how we got here, and where we're going. And the how we got here In the history of the world, part 1 and part 2, they never had negative and zero interest rate policy, and they never made up a game called quantitative easing.
Yeah.
So they create new games. So you can't predict what they're going to do exactly. But what you can see what they're going to do is, number one, as I said, as we started talking about surveillance, they're going to know everything about us. They'll be able to look into your homes. You will have no privacy at all. It's gone. And now with a crypto, with a digital currency, they know every penny you spent.
Every penny.
Where did you get that money? How come you didn't pay this much taxes on it? You can't hide a dime. That's why they want to do it, so they could steal and take more of your money.
Before we part company today, I wanted to ask you about, in the last 5 minutes that we have that we agreed to do, thanks for coming back on, trendsresearch.com. You are listening to the great Gerald Celente. Not a word I use lightly, but a great guy, and accurately predicting these trends for years. And if very modestly saying there you got things wrong once in a blue moon, but ultimately you know what the end game is. Of course, the strategies change from time to time. You're all over the Middle East, and you have been forever. Apparently, the lunatic in Israel is going back to the people for the third time. Unbelievable what's going on there. And, of course, this kind of brings us neatly into Iran. And in the Journal this week, you're talking about the pressure on Iran from outside the country, which has been relentless. And, again, you've been talking about this since forever. But also from within the country. Iran, it's a major trend for 2022, isn't it? What's going to happen?
Yeah, well, the United States and a number of countries have, particularly the United States, have declared economic warfare against Iran, what they're doing with these sanctions. And these sick imbeciles have this moronic thought that if the people are really suffering badly, they'll overthrow the government, and then they could establish regime change without starting a war. It's as simple as that. And it's not working, of course, but it's causing a lot of problems for the average person, just like they did with Venezuela. Let's go back to January of this year. The United States saying this little boy, Juan Guaido, who declared himself El Presidente of Venezuela, was going to be the next president. The United States did everything they could to overthrow the Maduro government. But they didn't. And that's what you have going on over and over and over again. The people are suffering because the United States also put on severe economic sanctions. So now going back to Iran, what's going to happen as we see it is with particularly Netanyahu, who's, he's a warmonger, he's a hateful man, by his deeds you shall know them.
Yeah.
Remember this guy painting that stupid little bomb and going to the UN with it, that kitty bomb with a fuse on it, and saying that this was Iran's nuclear bomb, and the fuse was lit and it was ready to explode. What was that, 2012? And here we are, 7 years later, 8 years later almost? And so with him desperate to get reelected, brought up on corruption charges, when all else fails, they take you to war. And if war is started against Iran, it'll be what Einstein said. This will be the beginning of the Third World War. Einstein said, when they asked him, how will the Third World War be fought? He said, I don't know. He said, but the fourth will be fought with sticks and stones.
Yeah.
The reason the United States did not attack Iran after it shot down an American drone worth about $400 million or $200 million was because Trump said, well, we would have killed about 150 Iranians, and I didn't want to do that. Nope, because the Gulf of Hormuz would have become the Pearl Harbor. They would have blown the American ships out of the water.
Yeah.
These are the Iranians. They're not the Iraqis. They're not the Libyans. They're not the Syrians. They're not the Afghans that the United States easily goes in and their other allies of murder and destroys the nations. It's not going to happen with Iran. So it's very dangerous now because of the United States moving more troops into Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia's hatred for Iran People no longer talk about the slaughter Saudi Arabia has committed in Yemen, and because of Israel. So that's what we're most concerned about on the war front.
It'll be very interesting, won't it? Just to finish in 15, 20 seconds, I'll give you the final word as usual. Trendsresearch.com. Check out the journal if you haven't before. Do. You're listening to a great guy, Gerald Celente. Trendsresearch.com. Check out the journal. Won't it be interesting if the polls are wrong and the high turnout that we've heard about today favours Jeremy Corbyn? Because Corbyn should reverse the policies of giving arms to the Saudis to bomb the Yemenis with, and Corbyn shouldn't, in theory, go along with any US escalation in Iran. It'll be interesting later on, won't it? I don't know. I don't want to say keep our fingers crossed, but these are serious times. Thanks, mate. Final word to you, and I won't say any more to you. Final word to you. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for the journal. Thanks for your team sending it to me every week. Love you, and Merry Christmas to you and everybody at the journal. Final word to you, Gerald, and thanks again.
Yes, a Merry Christmas to you and everybody else, and Happy Holidays. And being that it's the Christmas season, we're asking people to give the gift of peace and to please consider going to occupypeace.com, which is my movement to bring peace on earth, goodwill to men. And Christmas time is, the birth time of the Prince of Peace, and I'm a warrior for the Prince of Peace. So please do what you can to give a gift of peace. Thank you very much, Richie, and thank you for all that you do and how you stand up and fight back against the corruption and the dishonesty and murderous other people that are running governments and ruining our lives.
You're a gent, mate. Merry Christmas. Thanks, Gerald. The great Gerald Celente, live on the line from his office in New York City. The Trends Journal, trendsresearch.com. Check it out. Brilliant stuff. Here's David Bowie, or Bowie. When we come back, I'll read I'll read all of your comments, not some of them. Thanks again to Gerald. Thursday's Richie Allen Radio Show. We're about 3 hours from the exit poll. David Bowie. It's a biscuit, it's a bar. It's a biscuit, it's a bar. David Bowie on the Richie Allen Radio Show. Phil Restino. How you doing, Phil? I always love hearing from Phil. What a gentleman Phil is in Florida there. Phil says, sorry Phil, I didn't get this till a couple of seconds ago. He says, Richie, tell Gerald that in 2018, the Tampa Bay Rays baseball stadium disallowed any and all cash payments at the ballpark, to include parking in the parking lots outside. To buy a hot dog and a beer, you have to use their card. Like a prepaid card, Phil. You see that quite a bit now in Manchester. Cash bars gone. A card only. You'll see that now in some places, in some venues. Card only. But, there is a but to that. The Christmas market in Manchester is a vast, sprawling thing. It's pretty massive. It extends right across the city. And when you go to one of the huts or one of the kiosks, it's like a little village within a village, you can't use card. You must have cash on you. So I like that. Back to Tampa Bay Baseball Stadium, Tampa Rays. Phil says, if you don't have a card, there are kiosks to purchase debit cards for cash to use to buy food and drink and souvenirs for you and the kids during the game. It is a top trend, as Gerald said, and he did say this to me way back in my Spain days. Way back. He said to me, watch this now in the next 10 to 15 years, how cash will disappear from society. People won't use it. And he said to me at the time, he said, there won't be too much of a fuss about it. You see, people will just get used to paying with their cards. And they will be induced to feel wonderful, to feel thrilled at how convenient it all is. Oh, it's brilliant. I don't have to carry cash. It's brilliant. And I just go up to the thing and I just tap the old debit card. Bingo. I get charged and lovely, happy days. And I don't have to worry about cash and all the rest of it. It's great. Very convenient. But it's not convenient. I saw a tweet there when I was listening to David Bowie. Or David Bowie. It's a biscuit. It's a bar. Before I get to that tweet, Patricia tweeted, is it wrong to suggest that if people actually had to use cash to buy anything, especially in the US when salaries have pretty much stagnated since the 1970s, nobody could afford to buy just about anything. Keeping people in debt is just another control system, says Patricia. You're absolutely bang on the nose there. It's all about keeping people in debt and nervous and scared and depressed and upset. I know all about this. I'm 44 years old, but I experienced real poverty. When I was in Waterford City growing up, when my parents split up and Waterford Crystal went down the bloody fucking toilet and the strike, and families had no money. And for years, we had nothing in our family. My mother worked waitressing jobs. She worked in kitchens washing dishes to try and bring home some money. And it was desperate at times. And I saw the strain that placed on her. And not only on her, but in other people in the neighbourhood. Terrible, terrible strain. The terrible anxiety of wondering, where the fuck is the money going to come for the rent next week? I saw that. And as an adult, I experienced it in Spain when things were very difficult for us before I left Spain for London back in 2013. I could never be suicidal. And I have great sympathy and great pity for people who would be. I wouldn't look down on them. I wouldn't have anything but sympathy and heart for them and love for them. It must be terrible. I would never be like that. But Jesus, it was rotten. Not having money to buy groceries. Not having money to pay for the rent. Wondering what the fuck, like. Getting money from Caroline's father to go to London to do an interview with LBC Radio. To be stitched up. And then borrowing money to get from Spain to London for the People's Voice thing. Dreadful. And people sometimes plead poverty. Oh, I don't have any money. But they're exaggerating. They're bullshitting. I know what it's like to have no money. To actually have nothing. And to not sleep. I've always had insomnia anyway. But to actually think, we're fucked here. It is dreadful. It's a dreadful thing. I don't have that now in my life. And hopefully I won't ever have it again in the future. Whatever else, I hope I'll always have a roof over my head and be able to put some wood on the burner, the wood stove. We have one of those that came with the house, but we've not used it yet. One of those wood burners. What are they called? You know what they're called. Hopefully, but I've experienced it. I know what it's like for people. And more and more and more people are in that situation now. And I see them all the time, particularly here in Salford. And that's what the establishment wants to do to people. And it ultimately wants to do it to everybody. Everybody. It's a pretty sobering thought, That's the agenda. They want to starve people to death, ultimately. Mark worked for Manchester Town Hall in the 80s. He said money was lavishly wasted everywhere. We often had literally zero work to do. Yes, wasteful councils and governments. Yeah. Look at that story in the Irish Times today. The Irish government, the Irish Naval Service, selling a Navy vessel for €100,000. Whoever made the decision, he should have been hung, drawn and fucking quartered. Or flogged in public for everybody to see. It was eventually sent to Belgium, eventually it went to the United Arab Emirates, and then it eventually went to fucking Libya, where it saw action, and it was sold for €1.5 million. And some Irish dickhead, some bureaucrat, sold it for 100,000. Oh yeah. Joe says, whatever happened to Lulu? I have no idea, Joe, what you're talking about there. I think Lulu was fine and dandy, as far as I know anyway. Hi to Susan, who says, thanks Richie for getting Gerald on. Thank you, Susan, I appreciate that. And there was another. It was from Paula. How you doing, Paula? I was looking for your tweet there. Paula said, Richie, my husband went to the bank last week to take £2,000 out. Apparently he couldn't have it because they didn't have enough. Imagine that, Paula. And Paula says they also gave him the 3rd degree in case he was money laundering. The fucking cheek of him, Paula. That boils my piss right there. The cheek of him to ask you questions. If I want to take £2,000 out, you get the 2,000s, put it in 20s and 10s and shut your fucking mouth. Don't ask me questions about money laundering or I'll smack you silly. The cheek of him. The cheek of him. Asking you about money laundering, your own money. Dreadful. Dreadful. I hate them. I hate banks. I hate the people who run them. I hate the people who work in them. Fucking hate them. But we're all hooked to the umbilical cord, aren't we? Every single one of us, like it or lump it, eh? Like it or lump it. Listen, I want to say this before I go today. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I will be on with you tomorrow to have a kind of a reflection on the result. If things are not good for you, if you're struggling, and if you're really open, something happens for Jeremy Corbyn later on, I'm with you. Right? I'm with you. So I hope you get what you want later on. I hope you do. I don't know what's going to happen. I want to mention again, trigger warning on YouTube, Hayden and Graham and Hayden will be broadcasting the Trigger Warning show as per usual, because they broadcast, well, pretty much every day, but Tuesday and Thursday nights are the big shows. They'll be on as the exit poll is revealed. What's the exit poll, Richie? Do I have to tell you what the exit poll is? Okay. Some very professional men and women have been asking questions of people at random across the country today as to how they voted. It's usually pretty accurate. And then they crunch the numbers. And at 10 o'clock tonight, or 10 minutes past 10, I don't know what time, it should be about 10, they will then announce how the voting has trended. They can do that, of course, because at 10 o'clock, voting is suspended. It's stopped. Okay, so they won't be able to influence the outcome. So about 10 o'clock, they'll say, right, here's the exit poll. And in 2017, it was fairly accurate. So we'll see. See how it goes. And if you're open for a miracle tonight, I hope you get what you want. You know, I said if a gun was put to my head, didn't I? Of course, the thing is about voting in the UK, I wouldn't get a chance to vote for Jeremy Corbyn because I don't live in Islington. I live in Salford. So I only get to choose between Rebecca Long-Bailey and the other candidates standing against her. But if you put a gun to my head and you said, Richie, you've got to choose between Corbyn and Johnson, well, it's a no fucking brainer. It's got to be Jeremy Corbyn. As brutal as he is, as inveterate, lost with all hands, stupid as he is. I'm channeling Kevin Myers now. Corbyn is dreadful for so many reasons. Reversing himself on Brexit, of course. You know, long time anti-European Union guy. Not standing up to the Zionists in the UK. I don't like him. But given, as I said, put in a situation where I had no choice, yeah, I'd put Corbyn in. So I hope you get what you want. If you're living on the margins and you've been screwed to the fucking wall by the Conservatives and by the Conservatives and the Lib Dems before them, I hope you get what you want later on. Anyway, that's about it from me. If you follow me on Twitter, please do. I will not be doing a paper review tomorrow because it's Friday and I don't do paper reviews on Friday. But follow me on Twitter and I'll let you know sometime around 10 o'clock in the morning. I'll let you know what time I'll be on air. If you're interested, it might bore the piss out of you, reflecting on the election tomorrow. If you're interested, I'll let you know. All right. Yes, I'm going to go now and wish you the best this evening, if it means anything to you. Until tomorrow, you look after yourselves and one another. Going out with Counting Crows, wonderful cover of the great Joni Mitchell song. This is Big Yellow Taxi. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye. Hayden and Graham tonight, by the way. Trigger warning on YouTube.